Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of New Slang. This is 116 to be exact. I am your host, music journalist Thomas Mooney, and we're kicking off the week with singer-songwriter Karen Jonas. As I mentioned last week, Karen's new album, The Southwest Sky and Other Dreams, was part of that monster album release day this past Friday. These past 4 episodes have been with 4 artists who all released albums on August 28th. Culture Wall, Zephaniah O'Hora, Justin Wells, and now Karen Jonas. I would highly encourage you to check out those 3 conversations. As the title alludes, songs on Karen's new album, The Southwest Sky and Other Dreams, are really tied to the American Southwest. Those arid desert wastelands, the foothills of the Rockies, and those pockets of people that are hugged up next to Interstate 10 or who are holed up in their own little bubble of life, kind of cut off from the rest of the world. And then, of course, there is this daydream quality to the storytelling here as well. Whether that's her having these really vivid and bold snapshots of a person or a place, and then kind of letting her imagination run wild from there, filling all the gaps in. Or in some cases, I think there's the daydreaming quality that is tied to the characters themselves. They're the ones daydreaming. That's especially the case with a song like Pink Leather Boots. Our protagonist is the one daydreaming within this dream world. There's some song inception happening right there in those kind of moments. That's really cool. I really enjoyed speaking with Karen on this one because we didn't just talk about the specifics of this album, the writing and the artistic process of these specific songs, but we also spoke about trying to find that place and how do you get there. Trying to find that space to just think and explore the caverns of your own mind. And of course, that's a giant aspect of any artistic venture, but I think it's really an integral part of this album and Karen's perspective as a storyteller and a songwriter in general. Today's presenting sponsor is Desert Door Texas Soto. If you know anything about me, it's probably that I'm from the heart of West Texas and absolutely love everything about West Texas. And that's really why I love Desert Door so much. You may be asking yourself what exactly Soto is. Well, it's a premium spirit that's similar to a tequila or a mezcal, but for my money, it's a little bit more refined and smooth. There's a sweetness and faint hints of vanilla and citrus, and it's also as versatile as your garden variety vodka. At its core, Desert Door is authentically West Texas. They go out and harvest Soto plants from the wild and bring them back to their distillery over in Driftwood, Texas. So next time you're at your local liquor store, get a bottle of Desert Door. For more info, check this episode's show notes. If this is your first time listening to New Slang, I strongly suggest hitting that subscribe link. If you just did, I'm giving you a virtual high five right now. New Slang is over on iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Stitcher Radio, and basically any and everywhere you listen to podcasts. Go check out the New Slang merch store, grab a koozie, some stickers, buttons, and magnets. Any bit helps. I'll throw a link into the show notes. And if you're into playlists, go check out Tom Mooney's Cup of Coffee and the Neon Eon playlists over on Spotify. The Neon Eon is for all your nostalgic 90s country needs, which there's going to be more Neon Eon related stuff coming your way pretty soon. And then Tom Mooney's Cup of Coffee is a regularly updated mix of new Americana and country music. It's also a really great hint at who I have coming up on the podcast. So yeah, go follow those. Okay, I think that about does it for this. Let's get on to the interview. Here is Karen Jonas. Yeah, so you have this record coming out at the end of August, and I know like you know you're character driven in general in your writing, but this record right here feels very specific to a certain, I guess, cast of characters in these vignette kind of ways. And they all kind of have that, obviously the title Southwest Sky and Other Dreams. So they all kind of have that relation back to the Southwest. At what point did you start like kind of figuring that was a theme?
You know, I love it as a theme, and it's a really good question. It's hard to pinpoint the moment when I I collected enough songs to decide that this is what the record was going to be about. I do love a thematic concept. I feel like concept album sounds very fancy, but just to have these themes that run through a record to me is so important to make it a story. The whole record needs to be a story too, not just each song. So, I feel like I had a couple of adventures in the Southwest myself. And so it started creeping into some songs that I had. And then I just began to see it as the place where these other characters would also live as I started collecting. It sort of piled upon itself.
Yeah, I'm sure like most of these adventures, they all are related to touring, getting out and on the road, and if you're in an area for a couple of months or a month or a couple of weeks even, um, you can, I don't know, for some reason you end up like having strange stories or strange people or just interesting people come across your path, and then as you start getting those people collected in your mind, you kind of go, oh well, these all kind of relate in a strange way. Is that kind of what you were thinking as far as like anything that you've written before?
Definitely. I one of the songs on the record is called Pink Leather Boots, and I just jotted it down in a notebook somewhere heading toward West Texas from Austin, and I kind of forgot about it, but I was going through my notebooks and I found just it said pink leather boots and maybe some little star with a little note, and I thought back to why I had written that when I was there. We were driving through. You just get this little snapshot of a place without digging in too far, and sometimes you can pick up the best things that way. With pink leather boots, I saw some sign and it said dancing girls, and I thought, who the heck lives here? Who goes here? Like, who dances here? Why are these people, what is their life like? And for me, that was enough to write this whole story about this trucker that drives through a town and stops in and watches some girl, falls madly in love, and then drives away. And that's it. So you just get these little ghosts that pop up when you're driving around somewhere that you don't live, even when you do. But
Yeah, like that. It always feels like. So I used to travel a lot with my dad, driving around, and I'm from small town West Texas, and you see all these little signs on the road, and this is obviously before we all had phones or anything like that. So if you're just sitting there and you're tired of reading what book you brought or whatever the case is, you just kind of create these little, well, why is that there? What is this? What is, that kind of stuff. And that song very much feels like the beginning of that. Just to kind of, I guess, for listeners are going to know when we did this, you just recently put out that music video for it. And that little music video is so funny and charming and catchy and just kind of perfect for that song. How did that start?
Thank you. Yeah, that fellow's name that animated that video, his name is Matt Rash, and we had done a couple of videos for this record actually, and we were talking to our radio advisor person, and he decided that was going to be the radio song, and we hadn't really expected for it to be a centerpiece of the record, really. So we thought, well, shoot, maybe we should make a video for it. And actually making videos has been sort of an exhausting process. So we had this idea that, maybe we could make an animated video for it. Claymation is always your first guess. That's harder. So animated is second best, and I think it turned out really well for the song. I think it's so funny and quirky what Matt was able to put together from the song. I was really happy with how that turned out. He didn't really ask me very much. I sent him the song and I sent him a little list of ideas, and he just kind of went to work on it, and then he sent it to me when it was finished. So I love it. I think he did such a great job with the video.
Yeah, and obviously, like the that bass line in that song is so catchy and infectious, and it plays with like in the music video, it really plays with um, the animation as far as like the eyebrows and like everyone's mouth kind of moving in that little rhythm, and I don't know, like it adds so much of this. I don't know, like I don't know if I necessarily I would say fever dream, but this little bit of this like weird kind of dream world aspect to it. And of course, like he passes out in the music video too. But I don't know. I think it just it plays really well with it.
Thank you. I think so. Yeah, everybody is so twitchy in it, right? Everybody's got these little wiggles and jitters. Like even the clouds are twitchy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, twitchy. That's a great way to describe it. Yeah. Um, yeah. Like what you mentioned, you wrote that just like the pink leather boots down. What else did you add to it whenever you just jotted it down? Was there anything else, or was it just like that and as the jump start for the
Yeah,
song?
I think that was the jump start. I'm trying to remember if the neon sign had pink leather boots on it or what, but something must have made me think about that in particular. And then the rest of it I really wrote quite a bit later when I was looking back and I was imagining this scene again. And you know, when I think about the way that I'm writing these things, it's like I go back and I imagine this scene, and really this whole record is about people imagining scenes. The pink leather boots trucker spends the whole song imagining this scene with this woman that he never really meets. So it's sort of interesting that that's the circle that it is, because it's me imagining these people imagining scenes. There's a lot of dreaming going on here.
Yeah, like that's what I've always found really fascinating about songwriters or the process of writing songs is just how long you stay with an idea, and like how long do you let something marinate or think about it before you even pick up the pen or the guitar to actually write about it. Do you typically kind of like want to try and create this world, create help, I guess, ground these characters in a way for you before you even pick up the pen or guitar?
It really depends on the song. For me, there's definitely some songs that I just sit down and I just want to get something out. Especially some of the more emotional songs, maybe where or I just want to emote and express something, and I do that. I think on this record in particular, maybe like Barely Breathing or Maybe You'd Hear Me Then, or songs that I probably just sat down and wrote sort of start to finish, mostly, maybe with some editing later. But some of these stories, I think these story songs take a little longer to create this world that you don't live in already.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense because you kind of in an emotional song, you want to, you know, capture that emotion before it leaves. And um, while, like, I guess if you're building a character or like the little aspects of a character, you have to kind of think about how you make that person three dimensional.
Yeah, I never write about a character that I can see them all in my mind as I have when I wrote them. They have a whole world that exists, and there's details in that world that maybe aren't even they didn't make it in the song. But for me, songwriting about a story, you need to be able to see this whole picture so that you can pick the details that you want to describe to people. You get to pick the little bits that will maybe mean the most when you're telling a story.
Yeah, like those lost verses or lost lines. Those as a writer myself, not as a songwriter, but as a writer writing articles about people and about songs and albums, you always I feel um or I try to like overwrite, and then like there's these moments where you kind of go, wow, this is just getting too long. What do I cut? How do I make this into a more concise version? And sometimes sometimes as a writer, you just have to cut some of your favorite parts, or the parts that are maybe not necessarily as important to the story as they maybe are just to you as the writer. So yeah, like I totally get the just trying to, I guess, to clean it up, edit it.
Yeah, I think the overwriting is a really important part of the process almost. I mean, I think it helps you find your conclusions, even if maybe you didn't know them when you started.
Yeah, one of the things that I've not really read too many screenplays, but what I've always loved about seeing a screenplay is the character description that just helps kind of kind of helps present what kind of person this is, or what kind of place this is, the location, because that helps the people who end up like making the movie find the right aspects. And sometimes like it feels like songs are like the original version of a song is kind of like that, getting all those details right.
Definitely.
What is like on I don't even know if you have any examples of this offhand, but like what is something that do you have any lines or even just memories about a song where you're like, oh, I had to cut this part out because it just didn't work?
Shoot, on this record for sure, in Farmer John, it's a story about a farmer's wife who determines that he might be cheating on her during the time it takes to boil a pot of tea. It's her thought process. Sort of, she's up in the morning and going through her morning things, and she puts a pot of tea on. She says, if you're not back before this tea boils, you're in big trouble. And he doesn't come back, of course, but that song had about 8 more verses and it was really long. I'm trying to think if I can remember any of the details. There was definitely a little more threatening. It was a little more aggressive in its original iteration. I cut some of that out and I let it be a little more ambiguous as to what happens and what he's doing. And I made it a little more just about her and the scene that she's in. And maybe, let the listener decide for themselves what he's doing and why.
Yeah. I mean, you could have had that be, I know you've covered some Dylan. That could have been like your Desolation Row or something.
Oh my God, I love that song.
That is such a great song. Yeah.
It's so long and wandering. And I've covered Desolation Row, and my guitarist Tim, he hates it. He thinks it's so long, and so I used to play it as just as like a sound check song, and he would like fix the sound and then just kind of wander away because there's so many verses. But
yeah,
I love Bob Dylan.
So do I. Like Desolation Row is, I don't know if like it feels, since it is like 10 minutes long and there's just really no chorus, but there's just like these just incredibly great detailed descriptions of people, and I don't know, it's one of those like perfect songs. Like it's kind of like I don't smoke cigarettes anymore, but it like to me that was always kind of like a cigarette song, because like you could just like sit there and take these drags off your cigarette and
Yeah.
like, listen throughout. I don't know.
It was sort of a surreal moment. I was sitting outside of kind of a nice bar here in downtown Fredericksburg. It was maybe a year ago, and it was really late. And some potentially drunk guy was sort of weaving down the sidewalk, and he was singing one of the verses to Desolation Row. And that's when I decided to cover it. I was like, oh my God, I love that song. How random is it that this drunk guy knows the words to Desolation Row of all things? I wanted to go shake his hand, but I didn't. So that was that's when I decided to sit down and learn it.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. It could have been Bob himself. I don't even know if I would ever want to meet Bob Dylan.
I don't think I could handle it.
Yeah. I know there was this is probably, I don't know, 7 years ago. Todd Snyder had written this essay about Bob Dylan, about how if he had ever, had the chance to meet Bob Dylan, he probably wouldn't because he's such a giant fan. And then like in this essay, he has like, I don't know, probably about 5 or 6 different examples of his friends meeting Bob Dylan encounters. And like, they all were just like too awkward or too, like his friends were always just like, they never really handled the meeting, the occurrence, the encounter as well as like you would probably wish you would. Except for
and then
one.
you
I think
have
there
to
was
live
one.
with that, right?
Yeah, I know. Yeah, there was one actually that now that I think about it, that was like a perfect, like, oh, that is very, very smooth. And not, I'll go ahead and just tell it because it's really great. But so one of his friends was like a musician. They had played a music festival in Europe, and like this festival was on an island, and like the only way for everyone to get back and forth on this island was this ferry, and like Bob Dylan had played the show as well, or the festival as well, and there's only like one ferry, I guess, and so artists and fans were all together on the same ferry that was going back and forth, and he's sitting there at this table. And he looks over and he sees Bob Dylan standing near the edge and looking out into the water. And he notices people notice Bob Dylan slowly. And a couple people come up and start asking him questions and, for photos and stuff like that. And you can just tell, like, oh man, Bob Dylan's probably not liking this, And so he, sitting at this table was this chessboard. And he said, okay, I'm going to just go up and tell him, Mr. Dylan, the chess table that you asked for is ready. Mind you, like knowing like there's a chance he goes like, what the hell are you talking about? So he goes over and does it. And Dylan comes and sits down at the table and he plays chess silently for the rest of the ride. And people just kind of like didn't bother him because they thought like maybe he was deep in thought playing this game of chess. And then like they never even talked, and like after they just kind of had the head nod and like went their own way. And that's like the prime
That's the
example.
best Bob Dylan story you can have.
Yeah, so
wow.
Yeah,
that's quick thinking.
I know. I don't know if I would have been able to do that. Because there would have been too much pressure thinking like he's going to say, what are you talking about? Like, and you kind of make a fool of yourself. But it's, I don't know, it's like it's kind of perfect Dylan story. Do you have like I know this is cliche, but like, do you have like a favorite Dylan era?
I mean, I love Highway 61 Revisited, and I love Blood on the Tracks most.
Yeah,
those are my two favorite. I actually yesterday got like a Rolling Stone tattooed on my arm, so it's fresh and red right now.
Well, that's cool.
Yeah, so there's my fresh Bob Dylan tattoo. That's why I can't ever meet him now because that would be embarrassing.
Yeah. Just long sleeves forever. Just on the.
But like a Rolling Stone, I actually read, because I wanted to be very well informed about the song before I tattooed it on my arm, was a song that Bob Dylan apparently wrote as like a 6-page essay first, speaking of editing one's art. So he wrote this 6-page essay and then at some point edited it down into what is still a fairly long song.
Yeah. Yeah, that's.
And then I also read that the Rolling Stone was more inspired by the Hank Williams Lost Highway than the Bible verse or any other Rolling Stone mention. So I liked that a lot about it too.
Yeah. Early Dylan, I mean, I say that like early Dylan, but because he just released that record earlier this year that has like these long epic songs as well. But early Dylan felt so much like he just had all this stuff to say and like just would fill up notebooks worth, and editing down an essay to make a song is just kind of, I don't know if anyone does that other than Bob Dylan.
Other than Bob, I think maybe I love Leonard Cohen for the same reason. He feels like he has so much to say, but Bob Dylan's saying feels so much freer to me. I love Leonard Cohen for his measured tone, and I think that his self-editing was a little more like banging his head into the wall. To Bob Dylan, just seems like he just all comes out of him so easy. Maybe that's not true. Maybe that's just the impression that I get. But
no, I agree. I think it's kind of like early Springsteen, where Dylan and Springsteen kind of had that same thing where it felt like they were always needing to cram as much. They would sometimes cram so many words into a line or something, where Cohen very much, like, every line is kind of just perfect. And I guess that's
every line is intentional, right? It's very careful.
Yeah. And I don't even know if that's how to, I guess that's like the poet in him, is the knowing just all the, not to say like the math behind it, but like kind of like that aspect of songwriting. Like just like that weight that you were talking about. Are you there?
I am, but I lost you for just a minute at the end there.
I was just kind of saying how that's probably just like the poet in Cohen, is the just making sure every word is meaningful and is necessary, and let's just make it perfect every time.
I agree, yes, and I love that about him, but I don't. That's not how I love to write. Certainly, I don't. I think it's amazing the way that Leonard Cohen can do that, and it still sounds pretty pure and natural. But I really have a distaste for like rhymey writing and stuff that feels too measured to me. I think you can sacrifice meaning and instead get too focused on, well, do these two words rhyme? And do I have the right number of syllables in this line? And well, this verse doesn't exactly match the verse before, and that's not okay. To me, I think that the song has to trump all of that specific, all those little details. I think that, sometimes writers can get a little caught up in that in a way that makes the writing less free, certainly.
Yeah, like that's like I kind of think of songwriting, there's a balance obviously to it, but a lot of times I think of songs kind of being those little snapshots of where that artist is at that point, and or what they were feeling right at that moment. And sometimes if you over edit and try and make it so perfect, you can sometimes, I guess, get away from like whatever that was that initially made you sit down and write that song. I wanted to talk to y'all one more time about our new partners at Desert Door and offer up a handful of my favorite ways to drink it. Get you a Mexican Coca-Cola, have a couple of swigs, then pour yourself some Desert Door Oak aged in, toss in a lime wedge or two, or how about this? Pour some Desert Door into a mug, top off the glass with some ginger beer, squeeze in a lime, or for all you ranch water drinkers out there, get you a Topo Chico, take a couple of pulls off, and then pour in some Desert Door. Toss in a couple of lime wedges, and now you have a mighty tasty and refreshing ranch water. Remember, Soto is as versatile as vodka and has a more refined, smooth, and a more complex palate than tequila. It's rich and balanced, and whatever your go-to drink is, it'll make it that much better. And again, it's inherently West Texas. It tastes like home. For more info on Desert Door, check our show notes. All right, that's it for Thomas Mooney's Cocktail Minute. Let's get back to the show. Getting back to your record, though, again, all these songs are kind of in that Southwestern feel and that, these little vignettes. how long of a time span are these songs from? Like what's like the earliest song from the bunch?
The earliest and by far the outlier was Farmer John. And that's a song that I wrote. Oh, geez. It must have been right after I got divorced. And because I know that I had lost my voice for a few months, which was horrible. And I wrote that song and I couldn't sing when I wrote it. So it was probably in 2012, maybe. But most of them are from in the past year or two. That one had just been sort of hanging around, waiting to find its way on a record, and it just hadn't yet. I think the rest of them I wrote really within the past 2 years for sure.
Yeah. How often do you have, like, going back to that whole thing where, you mentioned during that song you had all these extra verses. How often do you go back and take something from there and it's kind of like the seed of another song? Does that happen often or ever?
You mean take something that was left over and find it a home?
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
I don't think so. I think they just go away. They're so connected to the story that they're in. I guess I definitely have some thematic writing that I've done where the concept carries on, and you can look at one thing from a lot of different angles. And in some ways, I see this record that way, but I don't think any of them are direct descendants of each other like that.
Yeah.
They don't get each other's leftovers.
Yeah. Like, I've always wondered about, like, how often songwriters will kind of like scavenge over remnants of old songs, kind of try and.
It seems like a good idea, but I just don't know if it's practical. I don't know. Everybody writes so differently, for sure. I'm sure that somebody out there somewhere, that's their go-to, leftover lines swapped in and out. But somehow that just seems like more work, actually, not like less work.
Do you write in pen and paper, or are you have you gone on to being like a laptop writer or something?
I'm in transition. I've been a pen and paper believer since forever, and I have piles of notebooks. And what I like about notebooks is that there's no distraction, like having everything on our phones is just such a blessing and a curse because you always have it. So if you think of something, you always have your place to write it down. But to stay focused on some creative spark with all of the distractions of, I like I just use the little notes app on my iPhone. And I'm always at this point putting little notes in there, whether it's pink leather boots or the Last Cowboy at the bowling alley was definitely a phone note that I wrote down at some point. But it's hard to stay really focused because you have to be, as an artist, there's all these not very artisty things that you've got to be focused on with social medias and, keeping track of all the emails involved with all of the people involved in the record and everything. And, I love the idea of a space away from that. That's just this little protected notebook, and you've got your pen and you get to just think into that notebook and it doesn't do anything else. So while I love that as an idea and I'd like to do that, I do write in my phone quite a bit now.
Yeah. Like it's so easy to say, we're going to turn the phone off or, put it on airplane mode and put it away and let's just write in a notebook or write wherever your space is. But then it is like I don't know. For me, I always kind of even feel in the back of my mind, like, what if an emergency happens? I need to have the phone on. And then, like, on the other side, if you are using the notes or using, even a laptop, you're constantly kind of getting notifications of social media, email, whatever the case is. And it can just be distracting, so.
Definitely. I mean, you can be off on some some vision quest of some sort, and you're off thinking about whatever it is you're trying to write about, and you're seeing a picture and you're writing something down, and then it's like, oh, I got a text from somebody. Oh, there's an email. Oh, my news just pinged me that some crazy thing happened in the universe. It's like there's just too many things there to be focused on something that's, something that you're creating, something that's not even real yet, is tenuous anyways.
Yeah. Do you, obviously, like, you're a mother too. Is it hard to, like, not necessarily, like, to tell the kids, like, hey, I'm writing songs or something like that, but that obviously is I don't want to use the word distraction, but that also can be a disruptor of writing. Do you have a space in as far as time goes, or is that just one of those things where you have to work it in when it fits?
It is extremely difficult, actually, to find time and space to sit and just be, because I have 4 kids, between the ages of 2 and 11, and they're just they're a lot. They're a lot of energy and a lot of sound, and there's just a lot of things that they need throughout the day. And last year I was really enjoying the baby had just started preschool, and all of a sudden I had 2 days a week where everyone was in school for 3 hours, and that was amazing. And I wrote a ton. Well, during those 6 hours a week when my house was quiet. But this year there's currently no school, so that is a struggle.
Yeah, like that just, I've always, kind of jokingly talked with my family. I don't have any kids and I'm not married, but like when we would, mostly this is like always around holidays when we're all kind of together, I'd always kind of jokingly tell them that, when the first time I watched The Shining, I really didn't, like, Jack is like a scary character, but like when he starts talking about being interrupted, that is a very, like, real kind of frustration sometimes, as far as, like, hey, mom, dad, I'm trying to do something here. Can you please, like, just stop bothering me even? And of course, like in The Shining and Jack, he does not handle it well, but there's a little part of me that relates to his frustration of being interrupted.
That movie was so scary to me. I saw the movie, and I have to tell you, all I remember is some woman in a bathtub. Was that a scene in that movie?
Yeah, it was. And yeah, that's like the strange weirdness, creepiness of that movie.
Yeah, God, that movie scared the bejeebus out of me. I still can't really walk by a bathtub without thinking about that lady. But yes, there is some frustration, and as my kids are getting older, my oldest is almost 12, and she's very bright, and they don't believe you, certainly half the time. I told her that I needed her to, I was going to go talk on the phone for an interview, and that if she could help with her little brother until my mom was going to come by and help today. So I'm like, I just need you I'm going to go downstairs and think for a few minutes before I get to this interview. And, she knows I have this whole record coming up and everything. And she says, well, who are you interviewing? And I said, I'm not interviewing, somebody's going to interview me. And she says, for what? And I said, well, for the record, sweetie, for the record that's coming up. And she said, oh, I thought you meant like a job interview. And I thought that was really strange. She definitely does not think that what I do is particularly interesting, so I have to make some boundaries. Like, well, I'm writing a song right now, and that's actually important to me and my work. So you guys need to go find something to work on. That's my mom code for get out of here. You need to find something to work on. So they know that means that ideally they would clear out for a few minutes. But with 4 of them, it's, somebody's back within a few minutes.
Yeah.
Anyways, but I do. I have to express to them that what I'm doing is important, and in some ways that's good for me, because then I have to say to myself, "Hey, what you're doing is important, and it's worth whether I have to post 8 things on my social media, or whether I'm writing a song, or whether I'm working on all of these other pieces of this record release." I get to say to myself, "Hey, this is important," and sit down and work on it and make this space to do it. But there's definitely not enough space in the world in a house of 6 people. So it's a challenge, but it's one that, I've managed till now and will continue to manage.
Yeah. I think like some people, and I mean, no fault to their own, because like obviously how often do people live with songwriters or writers in general or anything like that? But it can be difficult to sometimes get back to whatever point it was that you were in the middle of what you were working on. You may have not even been typing or writing something down. Sometimes you're just in thought, and sometimes it's a process to get back to that moment. And you're kind of, it's work. That's the only way else I can even say it.
It is. I mean, I don't think you ever really get back if you're in the middle of a creative space. You come back to somewhere else, and that place is generally a little frustrated and a little more, a little bit, geez, why am I interrupted 87 times when I'm trying to do one thing here? But maybe that's comes out in songs somehow or other too, or writing or whatever you're working on. But yeah, it is once you're trying to go somewhere creatively, it's pretty difficult to describe, especially to children, as something that's important. It's like, no, I'm just thinking right now, and actually that's important to me. And it's like, well, it doesn't look like you're doing anything. You're not doing the dishes, you're not folding laundry. I can't tell what you're doing, and I'm 11 and I need something. So, hey, what's up? What's up, Mom? And it's like, well, I was thinking. That's a hard thing to try to tell a kid and have them believe you.
Yeah. It's for me. I mean, I have one little brother, but we're 14 years apart. And so by all means, like we were kind of like just single children our entire lives growing up. But so I feel like that for me, it's so easy to just, to understand like, hey, go off and find something to do. But that's not, the usual, because most people do have siblings. Most people have a lot of other people in their lives or in their house. How has like the pandemic changed songwriting and all that art? Has it just been that little bit more added pressure? Those 6 hours being taken away. What else has there been? Has there been anything else that's changed it for you?
Yeah, for me, it's a loss of my quiet space, which is just a challenge that I have to live with here for a while. But for a while, we weren't playing very many shows, and that actually encouraged me to write more somehow. I think that I wasn't, expressing as much as I usually would if we're playing 3 or 4 shows a week. I have all this opportunity to get whatever my musical angst is out into the world. And without that, I definitely played guitar around the house like 10 times more than I usually would. And that was some, learning songs that I like, and some writing, and some just sort of ideas playing around. But so in some ways that was good, because it encouraged me to make that space in my house to play music, even with the kids running around, which is just something that I usually wouldn't attempt to do. But so I enjoyed that. We're getting back to some outdoor shows now, which is just really sweaty because it's like been 100 degrees for a month. Yeah. But we're playing a few shows again, which has been good, but I'm worried about what the fall will bring and what the cooler temperatures will bring, and just there's some worry about not being a part of places where people could be getting sick.
Right. Has what was like, I guess, the plan to always release in August or around there, or was there thought about pushing the record further back or anything like that for you?
Our original intention had been to release more like May or June, I think. And when, around the time when we should have been finalizing sort of all of our release plans, is kind of right when everything shut down, and it really just pushed us a couple of months. Just as far as putting a team in place, everything was just kind of a mess for a few minutes there. But yeah, we landed at the end of August here, and I don't know if pushing it, we talked a little, is October different? And I don't know that it will be. I don't know that anything will be different until whatever moment this people are able to congregate again in venues and things, and who knows when that is.
Right. Like so much of, for starters, it's always such a weird thing as far as having to push a date back with something that obviously you've been around these songs for a couple of years. And I know with most artists, it's like, yeah, I really love this new record. But as artists, you always kind of want to, you get it out and you're already on to the next thing. And this feels like the great pause, if you will, has made that such a where this is all a territory that we've never been in. And I don't know if people really understand that. And then also just like so much music today is tied to touring. That's how you sell a record, right? And when that's kind of taken away, that's obviously can be frustrating and worrisome and all those little things that I don't know if the average person really
Oh yeah,
takes
it's
into
devastating.
account.
And we had worked so hard on this record, and for us, this was going to be our big elevation. We were going to drop a bunch of money into the release, which we're still dropping plenty of money into the release, but we were going to ideally be able to use this record to elevate our touring and sort of move up a notch in the world of where we're able to perform and our touring schedule and everything else. And those opportunities that are lost are just gone. I mean, it's not like people are like, oh, well, you can do that next year. We were supposed to be at South by in March, and we were supposed to be in Europe in July. And, maybe we can do them next year, but it won't be with the momentum of this album, certainly. And once you leave that album cycle momentum, it's just harder to get the opportunities that you get during that little bright light when people are excited about your record release of that month, or that 6 months or whatever blip you get. And so to not be able to make the most of that, and obviously it's not me, it's everyone who's releasing records this year. It's really hard. And financially, it's really hard because the record release is so expensive, and we're independent artists. So, my guitarist Tim and I do all of this, and it's a lot of work and it's a lot of money.
Right.
So it's hard to see those opportunities that we were investing in just not get to happen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like I've known so many people who have, obviously they've had to postpone tours or cancel tours, and so many of them are in Europe or in, for months stretches. And yeah, like they say postponed, but is it really postponed, or is it full on canceled? And especially if you're going to Europe, there's so much planning that has to go along with that. I can't imagine just the added stress of the situation.
Yeah, ideally, with Europe, where they pushed all their festival dates to 2021, it's like, well, hopefully we'll just be able to do it then instead, and hopefully this record will help us do that better. But I feel like we are now in a world where you can't count on anything. 2021 in the summer, like, I think right now we're still banned from most of Europe. Hopefully by 2021 we'll have all this figured out, but I don't know.
This episode is in part brought to you by the Blue Light Live here in Lubbock, Texas. While Blue Light is still closed due to the pandemic, there is a way to help A, support Blue Light, and B, get a sense of that normalcy by visiting bluelightlubbock.com, clicking on the merch tab, and getting some koozies, a vast array of t-shirts and caps, and yes, even a Blue Light flag. While it is such a bummer that live music is still on hold right now, I'm telling you, by getting some Blue Light Live merch, you're going to feel better. It just feels better wearing a t-shirt and ball cap and helping support your favorite bar. Again, that's bluelightlubbock.com. Click on the merch tab, get some merch. All right, back to the episode. A lot of people I've been talking with during this, they've had their free time taken up by some other kind of artistic outlets. Have you always just been a songwriter, or have you tried other things out for artistic expression?
Really, I've always been a songwriter, and I've been a songwriter since I picked up a guitar when I was 16, and then when I had my oldest, June, I was 21, and so I've really just written songs and played them and raised my kids, and that's enough to take up quite a bit of time. I like to think about what I would do if I had more time, but I just don't have more time. So I definitely find that staying focused on what I do in order to do it well is pretty important for me.
Yeah, I kind of figured, having the 4 kids was that was enough stuff to do in general, just raising a family. But I didn't know, if you also painted or anything like that. Have you always kind of been a daydreamer or anything like that? Because I feel like if you're a kid and you daydream a whole lot, it really translates to the songwriting or storytelling in general.
I have. I've always been I'm extremely introverted just as a person, and I'm better at being a social person now than I have been in the past. But I still like to be by myself and just be quiet and think about things. And I think that's a lot of it. When I was a kid, if you're talking about as a kid, I would go up in my room and hole up for days and work on, I did all kinds of crafts and things all by myself up there and listened to music and did my own thing. I read a ton. I have an English degree. Reading has always been a place where I like to go into stories, and then now, I don't have a ton of space, but I still like it. I like to lay in my bed forever. That made it in a couple of songs on this record, I think. I just like to go back to bed and just look out the window and be.
Yeah, I read I think it was like an interview with Cowboys and Indians where you mentioned liking to sleep and lay down, and then after reading that, obviously I had the record on, and I like one of the songs that mentioned sleeping or laying down, like, just came on like right then too, and so I was like, oh yeah, she just like all
it's in Tuesday for sure. It's Tuesday's wash. I'm going back to bed. Like I quit. I'm not doing this. I'm just going to go lay back down, and it's going to be better. It's going to be better there.
Mm-hmm. And then, of
So
course,
I feel that
then of
a
course,
lot of
like
days, I think.
yeah, and then of course, like the album title, Other Dreams. It's I don't know. I always love like just sitting there and like not doing anything other than thinking. And sometimes, like, obviously as a music journalist, I'm almost always playing music, but sometimes even just like taking that off and just sitting in silence is more than fine with me. I don't know if that's
Yeah, I don't. I listen to music that I know really well, but if I listen to a lot of new music, I find it really distracting to my thinking. Like too much to focus on. I like to be off in my own world sometimes.
yeah, I don't know. I feel like most people aren't comfortable with that silence. I don't know why. But like for me, it seems like you're very much the same way as far as just kind of being in your own head. One of my favorite things to ask people, songwriters, is, you mentioned earlier doing I guess like the just the daily tasks of keeping a house up, the washing dishes, folding laundry and stuff. Is that a great time for you to get into these character mindsets and think about songs and think about your craft?
It is, if I can talk my kids into going outside or or somewhere so that it's a little quieter. I actually find, and driving, especially driving with no music on,
Mm-hmm.
is a real creative time for my brain. And then doing little menial things that don't require a lot of thinking, like folding laundry or washing dishes or something. To me, that's a good time to really let your mind wander and think. It's not a good time to write things down, but a lot of times I think it's best to not rush the writing down and to explore the thinking part a little more first. So
I always think like the autopilot aspect of those tasks help, because what I'll end up doing is, when I'm working on something and you're trying to force it, like it just doesn't work. But then when you go do the dishes or something, and you're not really thinking about that, but it's like just kind of in the back. Sometimes like whatever that was, that aha moment will come to you.
definitely, it's a lot of pressure to sit down with a pen or to sit in front of a computer and say, okay, I'm going to write something now. And I know there's a lot of writers that do that in in a way that seems very diligent, like, oh, I write every day from this time to this time. And I admire that. But to me, that puts a lot of pressure on, like, just writing anything down, where I prefer to, wait for some inspiration to strike in and then go write it down with a pen.
Yeah. Do you know who Terry Allen is by chance?
I don't.
Okay, so Terry Allen, he's this songwriter from here in Lubbock, where I live, and he's a songwriter, but he's also an artist in general. He's got a bunch of sculptures and stuff like that. But you should check out some of his records sometime if you have the chance. But one of the things he always kind of has been saying is he's got like a studio, and that he doesn't necessarily even go in there always every day to work on something, but that just going in there and kind of being available to the moment helps him. And that's just kind of how he's, I guess, used that. And I feel like I don't know if I could ever write something every day. That feels like it goes back to the pressure. But I think understanding that you can have those be, I guess, like in the moment enough to capture if something passes you by is good enough.
I think so too. I think, maybe that's why I like to go lay in my bed, because that's like that's my studio. It's my brain studio in there. It's comfortable, and I've got the pictures on the wall that I like. And, I've got a window that, like, the light comes in really nice through, and a chartreuse curtain that I like a lot. So maybe that's my studio space. But if I think about it like that, I feel like it's too much pressure, but there's also always just taking a nap if nothing works out for the songwriting, so that's not a wasted time for sure.
Yeah. Like I don't know, like it's always so strange about even up to like my teenage years, didn't really nap ever. Didn't ever need a nap, obviously. And then like now that I'm after 30, I'm like, oh, 20 minutes here we can get that in. And
I love to nap. It's probably my favorite thing. Just to go and you go off into that thinking world. Like I've definitely gone to sleep with ideas and woken up with songs. I would say a little nap, can sprout some things.
Yeah. What I love to do is, so I like to drink coffee a bunch. I kind of drink all coffee throughout the day, not like a crazy amount, but drink a little bit of coffee before you take a nap, and make sure like your nap is in that 20 to 30 minute range, and you always kind of wake up a little bit more refreshed than usual because that
a pre-nap coffee. Yeah, that's bold.
Well, no, it kicks in right around the time you wake up. I'm telling you, there's some
that sounds like science.
No, that's what I was going to say. Like I read this in some magazine or something like that.
Well, I'm going to have to try that.
Yeah, I was going to just throw that one out there for you as maybe as something you can
I mean, I think that's a thing. Like after you have a nice Italian meal, you're supposed to have a coffee with your dessert. Is that related or no? I feel like that would kick in too soon.
I have no idea. It sounds like something.
Sounds plausible. I don't know. I'm just making stuff up now, so I don't know. But I'm going to give coffee before my nap a try. I usually, if I'm lucky enough to get a nap, I do wake up and immediately microwave a new cup of coffee. So I'm not sure what happens to coffee when you microwave it. It's about half as good as it was the first time, but it still works. So that's the main thing.
Yeah. So just try it. Like just drink the cup beforehand and then 20-30 minute nap, and it has to be like that little period because that's when about the time the caffeine really kicks in. So
that might be too much pressure too. Now it's like I gotta go to sleep or my coffee's gonna wake me up too soon.
No, I don't need to add pressure to you, but like I really have been enjoying talking with you today. I've really enjoyed the new record. And I'll go and let you get on to naps or kids or songwriting.
Well, thank you. It's been fun talking to you. I appreciate you having me on your podcast here and listening to the record and talking about Bob Dylan and coffee.
All right, that's it for episode 116 with Karen Jonas. Check out Karen's latest album, The Southwest Sky and Other Dreams. Check out Desert Door and the Blue Light Live. Stop on over at the New Slang merch store while you're at it. Okay, I'll see y'all later this week.